Oh, yes, I nailed it. Everything works. Fantastic. Except Twitch. So in a weird way, I got everything to work and then I broke Twitch, I guess. Something had to be broken to start the show, but the show is going to start regardless. So if you're here, you're here. Congratulations. You can watch Twitch. Do not leave your seats. Do not leave the website. It will break. We're going to be talking about some really intense things, possibly. Starting off with some Gamers8 results, just because it is the most recent tournament. And StarCraft 2 talk shows usually talk about that. But then talking a little bit about some of the new RTS that's got everyone in a frenzy, as well as the Stormgate reveal, which is very short, but I think we'll also take that time to just kind of discuss marketing strategies. And then, of course, a large portion of this talk show will be devoted to the StarCraft 2 balance patch, as well as the maps. I feel like the balance patch is really going to be where most of the meat and potatoes are, and that's totally fine. So you're in for a doozy, guys. I think we're going to have some passionate people here. I myself am getting ready for a bit of a rant, so I'll do that when we come to the balance patch. But let's start off with something that I don't think we're going to have as many emotions about, which is going to be the Gamers8 results. Happiness, perhaps, the only emotion. I mean, that was a pretty well-done tournament. And Raynor winning after practicing so intensely for that tournament was, it seemed almost like the default assumption at some point. He was just playing out of his mind. So anyone want to talk about it first? The results or the actual way the tournament panned out? Production-wise?
First of all, I want to say people who are on Chrome are not working, but apparently on Firefox it works. So
no, it's broken on Firefox too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. At least my Firefox
it works. Okay. Well, either way. Yeah, I didn't get to catch a lot of Gamers8, sadly. As a disclaimer, I'm really happy that Raynor won, and the bits that I caught were amazing. So really happy for the tournament, but I won't have a lot to say there.
No worries.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Gigi, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Your turn.
See, I'm kind of heartbroken. I love Raynor finally making another finals, doing this. He's been due, but I'm a little heartbroken for Cure because he's the second best Terran in the world. He has been the bridesmaid and never the bride for the last year and a half now. You know, he had his GSL 2 years ago, but it feels like he's good enough to get almost there. And this has been true really for his entire career. I mean, we remember his Katowice qualifying run where he qualified in every region, finally got it, and he had a decent run. We remember his first GSL run where he gets beaten by Bomber and Red Bull at the same time and falls out. And I don't know what it is, but I know in the past, CG, we've talked about how it feels like Cure is just the Korean Terran, right? It's like the distillation of Korean Terran. There's not a ton that makes him specially something.
Yeah.
But again, we see another tournament here where he's getting second place. He's getting 4-1, 4-2, and it's like there's got to be something that's going to get him up there. But I don't know. It just feels like he's good enough to get there and just isn't quite getting there.
I mean, I feel like if it wasn't for Raynor spending so many hours practicing for this tournament, and being able to get so much good versus Terran, I think he was once again doing his Archon mode practice. I think this was absolutely Cure's tournament. He looked absolutely fantastic. Always a threat as a TV tier, except Tamaru, but even then, it could have happened this tournament, I feel like. His TVP is literally the best in the world, so that was never really an issue. And then his TVZ was tested and, for the most part, was totally fine. It was just Raynor that was on a particularly fine form. Once again, pushing, I think, the boundaries of his skill cap and the Zerg skill cap, because that's what he does when he is playing his absolute best. And it's more of are you playing your absolute best? So, he talked about it. We definitely saw it in his play, even the games that he won. And you're like, well, he won them. Of course he played well. He played stupid well. There was a game where he lost his, third or fourth hatchery and still managed to make that a 20-minute game. That's crazy. So Kira is just maybe kind of putting himself in the same zone of just unluckiness that Solar is. Where it's Solar, you probably also should have won a lot of things. But every time that you seem to be on your own good day, someone else is even on their better. So, sorry, man. Next time. Solar and Kira, the guys who are never supposed to win.
Their job is just to make everyone else look good. That's what it is. Hey, you know what? You had a realistic championship. You played against someone who was good, who was playing well. It makes your run look better, Rainer. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. You're welcome. I don't know. There's probably an actual term for this in wrestling because it usually is, right? Someone to help the narrative along, but I don't know enough about wrestling. The point is,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure there is.
I'm sure there is. Where's Kalaris when you need him? But that does seem to be his curse right now. Is that Kier can never get that best day on the international tournament or domestic, I guess, because he still gets beat by Maru, even though he is arguably supposed to win once again in the round of 4. He's just it is unlucky. And I guess that's all I can say about the results. Anything else? I think it's pretty cool that we're seeing the 2 racks really dominate the meta right now in TVZ. It was pretty much firmly a Korea versus Europe thing, but then very noticeably, Clem has been doing it a lot since that tournament and practicing with it at the very least, if not, going to be doing it in bigger tournaments. So, I mean, that's another discussion. Do you guys think that the 4 racks TVZ is here to stay? Is this actually going to be what StarCraft 2 TVZ is now?
I think it's good enough to stay in the meta. And it's definitely good enough to continue to be used and mixed in. I will say it seems like it's already kind of boiled down to one specific follow-up is really powerful. And that's the 4 Hellion Liberator, like 530 16 Marine drop. Because it hits like a goddamn truck. Like it's so fucking strong. And it just feels like really powerful. More so even than the other variants. But I think if we can find even 1 or 2 more, honestly, there's so many variants. We'll see if Zerg players start getting good at that, if we see the variants coming back. Because right now, for me, it's the versatility and the wall at the natural that make it so good. Like there's just so many options. Like there's literally like 7 different follow-ups that I've seen off of it. That might even be actually underselling it. There might be more.
I think there are.
Yeah. But honestly, oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was actually going to switch back to Gamers8 itself because there was some really cool storylines.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, okay, I'm gonna fanboy out a little bit about this. First of all, Clem taking down Maru for the first time in an offline tournament, more maps versus Maru than he'd won in 2 years prior. Overcame a gigantic hump. Really, really impressed the hell out of us. And you can say Maru wasn't playing well, blah, blah, blah. You watch that 4th game, that was Maru doing what Maru does a lot of times where he wiggles his way out, but Clem grabbed him 4 times and was just like, no, you're not getting out of it. Stop it, shut up. And then it was just such a cool moment. It was obviously it didn't end the same way. It was very unfortunate that he ran into Rainer, who is literally playing actual super god mode, like Super Saiyan 17, because it was a really, really let the air out of the tires. But I mean, obviously, all credit to Rainer. But it was really cool to see Clem have this similar setup to Game 5 of Oliveira versus Maru in the grand finals, where Maru really starts playing like Maru, and Oliveira just doesn't let him get out of it. He just literally grabs on and just doesn't let go. And it was really cool to see. So that's 1. And then 2, Classic played like a fucking legend. So good. Absolutely tore it up. I fucking loved watching Classic do so well. It was really cool. And very unfortunate that he ran into, like you said, the best TVP player in the world. Obviously, that series, we can rewind it, we can replay it. It probably goes differently 9 times out of 10. But that's the thing about playing on the world stage. You have 1 chance. You have 1 chance to play your best game. If you don't, get fucked, I guess. You're just, it's a brutal situation. If you don't show up absolutely playing your best, it's too much. Now, he has a nice little solace in that he gets a healthy 10 grand check out of it. And that brings up my 3rd one, which was something that a lot of people probably would have missed out on. I'm not even 100% sure, but that this is the thing, but it has to be. A laser gets, so they had their 4 random things that was $10,000, or I guess 3 random things, but 2 of them went to 2 players, or 1 of them went to 2 players, which was best game, that went to Cure Classic. And then what was the other one? It's on the Liquipedia.
Best strategy and then best play.
Best strategy, that was for Hero. I have no idea what that was for, but I don't really care. But best play, a laser got the sickest Baneling bomb. And he didn't do, he didn't make like a deep run in the tournament. He didn't make it to playoffs. But that Baneling bomb was so sick. It killed like 45 or 50 supply. And it was just really cool to see such a pimp play getting rewarded. So I was just, it was awesome.
Except the problem with that one was he does this, he makes this big comeback, and he had a big supply lead, and then he doesn't capitalize it on it at all and loses the game in another 10 minutes. So
that one wasn't even, he was super, super, super dead.
Yeah.
And then that kind of made it maybe playable.
Yeah,
and
it's one of those.
Then he ended up losing anyways, so it was really sad.
Yeah, I mean, if he'd capitalized on it right then, I think he could have gotten a lot of damage, but he just sits back and let his opponent go to that late game Terran again, and you're just like, okay, laser. You're going to make the big play, great. Capitalize on it. Do something with it. Secure the comeback that you built for yourself, but, that's easier said than done, so.
Very much so. There's actually a bit of an issue with that. Not the biggest issue, and it's a little behind the scenes, but basically I think all the commentators felt very uncomfortable having an influence for these decisions, like, because we were asked constantly, like, what highlights to show, what's the the highlight of the day, like all the sponsored stuff. Of course we're asked that, which is very reasonable because production's not into StarCraft 2 as much, of course, and that's fine. But when it came to giving our friends and in some case peers, I guess some of them actually worked with us, $10,000 or not, like that was actually a little weird. And I'm not going to say who, but there are definitely players trying to basically campaign. So that, and I guess that's not really that wrong. It's not that bad, but it does make it a very weird situation for us when one of these players is like, please, I've only won $20,000 in 2 years of StarCraft 2. This could be huge, and you're just like, oh, I like the other play better. Okay, I'll definitely consider you. Yeah, okay, see you at breakfast. Bye.
I mean,
it's weird.
I guess on the flip side, like, who else would be a good candidate to make those judgments? I mean, although in fairness, it's hard even for the talent to do because y'all aren't watching every game. You're not going to see everything because there are multiple streams. And
as far as the B stream, Roddy was pretty insistent on at least having that up like all the time on but it was like it was like a PC monitor, not like the TV that we usually have in the green room, so it was still very difficult to do. Yeah. Amongst all the other stuff that we were doing, obviously casting, desk work, but also being pulled away to do like little content pieces with Fear Dragon. Yeah, it's a good thing that some of the B stream highlights did make it into the contest, but that would be because there were a couple of guys, like let's say behind the scenes in production, who are actually StarCraft 2 at least familiar, and they were doing a pretty good job of trying to like remind us of making sure to choose, and then they would give their input if we were lazy about it. There's even a little bit of drama, which time for the rumor mill, right? Like, I wasn't involved. I have no idea what went down, but someone actually was let go during the tournament. And that was like a whole hubbub. So, there's some weird stuff happening. But the point is that there were at least like 2 people, I would say, maybe down to 1.
Wait, unleash the drama. Why were they let go? Don't name names,
they stole her smoothie.
Yeah, exactly. Wardy actually didn't cast. I don't know if you guys even realized that. No, it apparently it was because they offered too many suggestions. So again, this is like total rumor mill, guys.
That's interesting.
This like, I have no idea who was involved. I don't know them personally. I don't even think I know actually who they are at all. I don't think I even met them. But there's a lot of apparently like infighting with behind the scenes. So that's all I can say. I'm just starting the rumor. I'm just, making sure to make everyone really nervous that I'm going to just spill all the beans one day. But this is shallow stuff, because at the end of the day, I don't know if it was really apparent, but it definitely, by the sounds of it, it was a messed up situation 100%. But it didn't really impact the show. Maybe it did, actually. There was a couple of moments, like in the Legends tournaments, where they showed the wrong Korean guy twice. Mm-hmm. They tried once and they tried again, and it was still wrong. So I don't know. But the point was that there were a couple of people who would have been able to make like the final decision, shall we say. And at the end of the day, that kind of happened. So that was preferable to us, again, trying to decide which one of our friends got $10,000. But it was a bit of a murky, weird zone for a while there. And at the end of the day, I think actually, I remember we were pretty hyped up about one or two plays. And we even solidified one. And then it got chosen differently somehow.
Oh,
but I don't remember what it was. So
was there no option? I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's okay.
I was just gonna say, was there no option to do it like a community vote or something like that, or would that have been too rushed, too difficult to implement?
Yeah, I'm guessing they didn't want to do that because it would be hard to implement, and they didn't want it to be a popularity contest because if Harsam's there, then Harsam gets it, even if his highlight was him microing a zealot.
I see.
I guess
that's a really good point. Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have to curate the list of plays anyways. So,
and the fact that it's you could curate it to I don't know 5 different plays or 3 different plays. But even then, bots are also going to be a possibility potentially. There's a lot of ways to abuse that system. Out of curiosity, so wait, did you guys, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But did the commentators not choose a lasers Baneling bomb? Because for me, that was obviously I didn't get to see a lot of the stuff on the A stream, but for me that was an easy pick. But obviously I may have missed a lot.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think it was the best strategy. The best strategy of the tournament is what we agreed upon on something, and then suddenly got changed, and we were all confused. And I think there was actually legitimately some discussion about how unfair it was to give it all to one person. Because one person could get a lot of the different categories, right? And I think that's completely fine if they really deserved all of them. They had the best strategy, they had the best highlight moment, whatever else it was. But I think that was also considered against. So, you weren't supposed to win 2 out of 3 or whatever it was. So that was also kind of weird. I don't know.
Something else that could have been a little funky. With best strategy is if you didn't know about it going into the tournament, and you used someone else's strat and then won that, could you imagine that? That could end a friendship, depending on how that shakes out. Let's say Lambo comes up with a build and he gives it to Raynor, and Raynor uses it. Raynor wins best strat, and obviously Lambo was already coaching Raynor. But then how do you split that? That's awkward as hell.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I actually straight up asked Maru in an interview, who we met at the 2 racks, the 4 2 racks thing. So if that had been the first time you saw it in a tournament, and Maru was congratulations, you showed it first, so you get it.
Yeah.
It'd be wrong. Special did it, and then Bjorn perfected it, and then Maru was kind of with Bjorn, trying to perfect it. But
although
I mean, there's some semantics there too, right? Because different people are going to execute this strategy and use their units differently, and ultimately, right, it can be, you can have a build but not have it be executed maybe you can't do it right as well as someone else can. And I feel I mean, probably there, as long as as someone that has always liked making weird strategies and sharing them, as long as I get a shout out, I'm pretty happy. So I think that would have been a good way to go about it.
I like to think that most of the guys are pretty nice too. So if they really thought that was contributed heavily by a friend, they would share the money. Anyway, I think overall it was a good idea. Obviously, a lot of money to throw into it as well. So you did have people really try, not just a campaign, but try and do it in the games. So that's something that we've talked about previously, and we've wished that more players would do, but then they either weren't an option, no prizes were available, or it was something that they weren't interested in. Fear Dragon was going to give $1,000 to the best ceremony in a tournament years ago, and then 2 players participated. So anyway, overall a good idea. It did just get a little murky. I mean, there was a ton of things that were obviously very good ideas, or done in the same fashion that they would be done for another bigger tournament, and then they didn't really have a lot of time given to really curate it, I suppose. So more impactfully like media days. We had 2 full media days. And it was jam-packed of stuff too. It wasn't like one of those like, you know, you show up at 2 hours and then they don't do anything and then you're like, oh, just kidding, you're going to go, which has happened before. No, they actually had us booked from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Half the casters first shift kind of situation. Or first day, but not the second day, whatever it was. I volunteered to do both days because I really wanted to talk about Brood War. But otherwise, they try to split it. And there's so much content. There was so much content. And they barely got to show any. And sometimes they showed the incorrect one, like not subtitling the Korean interview. Or the Cyril piano thing was actually not the finished product as far as Wardy and I voiced over. There was a couple of more meme things that happened that we were both really excited to maybe make like a meme in the StarCraft 2 again. And they showed the like cut version basically. So they only had us talking like before and after the actual gameplay. But then they were like, oh, we should add like, you know, like sound effects and stuff in the gameplay. So we had like, oh, my goodness, kind of things added. But then we also specifically chose points where I was like, Wardy, you should say that was an amazing fungal. So at one point, you know, a fungal goes out and he's like, beautiful fungal. Oh my goodness. And then I chose a moment where the queens were literally just like stutter stepping against a banshee that was flying into them. So like the least impressive micro ever seen to go, oh, the queen micro. And it didn't make the final cut. So yeah, we need the Snyder's cut.
I feel like that's where it would help to have a little bit more connect. Like I'm not really sure about the ratio. I know ESL was involved with the production to some degree, but I don't know if there was like it would have been nice to have someone at ESL or someone that is very invested into StarCraft 2 kind of like overseeing the process to some degree and then joining with their existing production, which I imagine was spread thin through so many games.
Well, so the problem actually ended up being, so the problem with like the incorrect media is like a different issue, you know, picking a bunch of titled things out of a folder of 500 videos. But as far as the amount of content that they showed, that had to be an issue just because they really didn't have a lot of downtime. So, you know, they found out like for instance, they found out that the downtime videos had to be limited to 3 minutes at most and sometimes less, which got rid of some of the media that they did. And then otherwise, I think the head media person, she was really great. She was really cool. I think she was really receptive to any of us coming up and being like, no, you should like really include this, like make a note and tell the guys to probably include this. Do you know her name? Like, I could get it. But yeah, she works on like every, you know, all the different, she was there for like the entire Gamers8 thing for like every esport.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them were, for like 6 to 8 weeks straight.
Yeah, for sure. But she was great. And, you know, I went up to her and I was like, look, this thing about like Maru saying who invented the 2 racks, like, I think that you should really show that. And she made a note, but it just didn't come out. They had interviewed all of the pros, or not all of them. They had interviewed most of the Legends pros in a way in which they gave them a laptop and they showed them their highlights. And then they had them react to their old highlights, and none of that. Gotcha. Absolutely zero. You had Jaedong looking at the Rochan Burrow of the BlizzCon semifinals.
Oh, no.
And none of that got shown, as well as a ton of, like, you know, in-depth interviews that we did with the players and a lot more of the
Jaedong,
content.
Rochan Burrow, like defending the
against Deer. Yeah. The 2 base all in, he got Roach Burrow and he did a sneak attack. It was pretty awesome.
That's pretty cool. Wow,
and they just like none of that got showed, which is actually really quite sad. And then because I guess they found out that the restriction was so harsh, they really only showed the Fear Dragon segments, which were 2 days of media prefacing the tournament. Most of the content they showed was stuff that Fear Dragon filmed literally 10 minutes before it was shown.
Oh,
so weird.
Like, I wonder if we could get them to like actually just release all the content on YouTube or something.
It's so much free money in my opinion, right? Like even if it only makes $100, that's still at least worth the guy clicking the video over to the YouTube, creating a subpar title and no thumbnail, and having the video up, in my opinion. But
probably.
I don't think they care.
It can cheapen the product depending on how much they care about it. But seeing as how all the productions were very like different from game to game, I feel like they could definitely just do that and not care too much.
I guess maybe there's a world because, you know, ESL is super involved in this where ESL changes the edit up a little bit so it's less like Gamers8 specific and brings it into ESL Masters winner. And then they just have a bunch of content in the docket.
I would love that. I'm not sure
that would be
how
awesome.
that works, but
yeah, I don't know who owns the IP and like whether you can edit out enough Gamers8 to make it, ESL specific, but
right.
if they can, hey, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. The only thing is, speaking of that situation, funny that ZG, you've got that situation where like a ton of content didn't get played out. Cats, Bayo, and I have a similar situation from the DreamHack
Yes,
DreamHack Atlanta? No, ESL Masters Atlanta. Yeah, where we did like the Hot Wings challenge, and it was 45, 50 minutes of recordings.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 minutes long, and honestly wasn't very good. There was some banger moments on there that didn't even get shown. Sal at one point, they Cats like put some on, and Sal's like, no, fuck that. Put like 6 dabs or some shit on.
And
like,
by the way, this is the hottest hot sauce we're dealing with. By the way,
my sauce, I don't have it here. I've run out. But that sauce is insane. It's called Flatline the End, 3rd hottest sauce in the world.
Oh,
yeah.
But like we missed out on all these like very cool, sick moments.
Yeah.
And it was so unfortunate because even it could have easily been cut down to like 3.5 or 4 minutes, and still no one gets bored of that. Like it could have been like a really great YouTube video. But unfortunately, it got cut down to like 1.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And like nothing at all. Like we get like Gumiho like crying and like Tempo crying, and like Bay almost says one word. I make a reference to how I shot off fireworks in my room once as a kid, but I don't even think that part made it in, like why I was saying it. But it was just so disappointing because it was such a good piece of content, and it really didn't land.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed what they produced, but I agree with you. It could have been much longer. It could have been content that we could have reused. And in general, I mean, that's kind of just how it goes. For my experience in Atlanta, we recorded so much of it, and I was, it's a shared sentiment, right? You see it, and it's like, oh, what about this part? And what about this part? And what about this part? And it would just be nice if there was a little bit more planning, I guess, to kind of recycle some of that content. But a lot of the time, I guess they have the goal of doing something for that specific event, and maybe they should, recycle more, project themselves forward a little bit more.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear, I'm not like trashing the producer or the editor or anything like that. I understand that they have like a certain requirement; they can't go over a certain time. They have to like cut it down. They have to obviously it was more important that they put like the Korean players and the people that are more recognizable. It's just one of those things where it's like, damn.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Well, let's move on from Gamers8. I think we discussed production, results, metas, storylines. So we've done a good justice. It does suck that it's the last like offline tournament for quite some time, but it's the way it is in StarCraft. So we're moving on to another RTS, actually. As this is a kind of general talk show as well. So not StarCraft 2 for a little while, guys, as we discuss ZeroSpace and then Stormgate, Infernal / kind of marketing and general stuff, because I think ZeroSpace actually disrupted the current atmosphere more than anticipated. Cats messaged me. I took a look. I was like, okay, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. And then kind of just, when it tweeted that it was having a Kickstarter, I said my honest truth, Mass Effect plus StarCraft 2 makes me happy. So I'm looking forward to it. And then I was ready to like drop it until it was released. And then it infects the rest of the RTS scene, which is great news for it. But then it also infects people's opinions and approach to Stormgate drastically, which is a really interesting phenomena, whatever, that we're going to get into. But first, I do want to kind of give ZeroSpace its proper place here. Talk about it as the focal point for a hot second, as we do have the Kickstarter now at $319,000. That's a lot of proof that the RTS community likes RTS. Good job, guys. And we're also usually older, so there's some more money to throw around. But that is exactly the type of proof that a lot of times I think companies are looking for. especially when it comes to showing the investors later on. Like, hey, like, yeah, we would like your money as well. And here's a way that we can prove that we deserve your money, because apparently there's a lot of people who still like us. So fantastic result for them. They not only released this Kickstarter with its videos and its graphics and its goals and its rewards and so on and so forth, but they also contacted a bunch of content creators such as Pig and Winter and Hearthstone and a few others, Beastie Cutie, I think, to actually do like battle reports, which I know a lot of people have been comparing this to. And I think it's been an absolutely huge success. So, you know, if you guys want to take a look at what the actual game looks like, by all means, scroll through this. They have 2 factions revealed, and they said there's going to be 4. And it's an actual 1v1 between 2 very good RTS players. So you can check it out. But I do kind of want to push this conversation a little more towards kind of like the marketing and the general appeal, I suppose, gathering people to like RTS. Because, you know, if we talk about the game itself, we're talking about things that we can't get our hands on. It's just not, I don't know. It comes to an end really, really suddenly. But as far as the marketing, as far as the decision making for what they've done, as far as waiting as long as they did to actually release something, that's stuff that I think is fairly interesting, because it really has seemed to change the market, or wherever you want to put it. People's expectations for these new savior RTSs that are coming out to hopefully replace / bolster the RTS scene. So, with that said, TLDR, ZeroSpace looks cool, and it has done a lot to change up the story that is going on in the general RTS sphere. And I would like to start discussing what you guys think about that. So, Katz, obviously you have a lot of bias here, but any background information you can give us as to why the marketing was chosen in such a way?
I can give you all the marketing information you'd like. I mean, yeah, it's just an issue of the question that you want me to answer, because I'm very involved in the project for sure. I will be the lead versus designer, which is basically multiplayer, except the other modes are also multiplayer, so we can't call it that anymore. I mean, as far as marketing, we are doing 2 different pushes. It is very much like you said, like Kickstarter is very important for us to basically get more time working on the project, get a little bit more funding like that. And if, in our wildest dreams, we get to control the product from start to finish. But realistically, like you said, proof of social concept is really important coming from Kickstarter to potentially get a publisher that we can align with, that we can be confident they will give us the freedom basically to do what we want to do, which is, produce the best possible game we can. Well, I mean, Stormgate very clearly had much more reach than we did, just as far as names being involved in the project, as far as legitimacy to go out there and just find publishers on their own, right? Because people know that Stormgate is the legacy of the StarCraft 2 team, and there is a lot of respect there. And I feel like that kind of allowed them to, get potentially like funding before having to reveal that much. Whereas for us, we didn't have that luxury, so it was a lot of waiting until we had a product that we would show is strong enough to be competitive, and only then could we actually show it to people and be like, hey, like, here's our product, you judge it, and that was kind of the approach on that front. As far as content creators, I mean, I don't feel like Stormgate invented the approach of getting content creators to talk about the game, but we gave them a lot of freedom for sure as far as what they can show. We pretty much just opened the doors to them. We had like I actually kind of planned out sessions where we would have developers and the creator that we were inviting to make a YouTube video in a session. I would talk to them. I would explain to them what the game is about. I would play a game and kind of go over it. And then after they've seen me play a game streamed, they would just get their hands on the product, ask any questions that they had, and then we created the content that they wanted to create. So instead of telling them, like, here's because our initial plan was basically like give them pieces of content so that they can easily create something out of like, hey, here's a few units, or here's like the mechanics, and here's the video footage that you want. But then upon further consideration from, for example, Hearthstone, like Hearthstone was the first one to bring out, like, I'm a gameplay guy, like I wanna, and we were like, you know what, our game is ready for you to jump in and make the video that you want to make, and make the video that you think will resonate with your audience, and pretty much no restrictions. So just, confident in our product, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And it seems warranted considering the public response. Steadfast, you can go next. What was your opinion when this was first announced, and then kind of the tidal wave that it caused in the RTS sphere?
I am going to have to be really careful with how I talk about this. I think we probably all are, because we're under NDA for certain other things. I think that ZeroSpace did an excellent job of, you talked about marketing, you talked about all that stuff. I think they did a phenomenal job of presenting a product that looks polished, and it looks pretty close to release. It's got multiple races ready to go. It looks good. It looks engaging. It looks, like a game that's ready to go. And I think it's fair to say that maybe not everyone else in the sphere has approached things the same way.
Uh-huh.
And I think that has created a disproportionate set of expectations. So we're used to StarCraft 2 or Blizzard timetables. So back in the day when Blizzard used to announce a game, they would be like, we're coming out with this game. And you'd be like, cool. When is it coming out? And they're like, TBD. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? And they're like, it means it'll come out when it's fucking ready, okay? And you're like, cool. Can you give us a date? And they're like, sure. 2 years later, they give you a date. And you're like, wow, it's only another year and a half from now. And then Blizzard is like, 9 months from there, they're like, actually, it's a little delayed. So it's going to be another year and a half. And you're like, so it's 5 years since you announced it. And they're like, yes, but while we were talking, we actually ran into some trouble with the engine. It's going to be another 6 months. So total, it gets like announced in like 6.5 years later. It finally fucking comes out. And it's a beautiful game. But that's not really how game development works anymore. You can't announce a game, and especially if you're trying to kind of like drive a hype bubble, or not even a hype bubble, but you're trying to create a hype wave, and it's not ready. Because now people are used to getting things faster than we used to be. And ZeroSpace came out and they presented a brilliantly polished, for a first look, setup. And it has really looked... It has looked good. It has looked very good. That's, I think, all I can say about that. It has generated a lot of
Stormgate. Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know what you're talking about, ZombieGrub, with your disparagement.
It's just like the minute that I say that Stormgate might have maybe, I don't know, hypothetically a problem, I'm just not going to be invited. Holy shit, I got to be careful here.
Yeah, right. Like that. Yeah. No. Yeah. It looks a lot further along than Stormgate, and I think Stormgate. Now, okay, there's a few possibilities here, right? Is that because there is actually a little bit of overlap into, like, everybody knows each other. Obviously, that's no secret saying that Katz knows the people who are working on Stormgate, and they know the people that are working on ZeroSpace. So there's obviously a little bit of interaction between the two. I can't say whether this is true or not, but I can speculate about it because I'm not under NDA for this. Did someone change their decision making on a timeline based on ZeroSpace and how good it looked? Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me too much. And if they did, I'm a little worried it might have backfired.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I guess we'll get to that. But personally, I will say I loved the Infernal pre-reveal. But we'll get to that. But,
exactly. I think we'll go over the Infernal reveal and then kind of the backlash.
I should mention I actually haven't seen the Infernal reveal yet because I've been very busy the last like 24 hours. So it's going to be my first look when we look at it later.
Nice.
So that is my opinion. Literally could change over the course of this show. That is important to note. And I do reserve the right to do so, even though that's ridiculous and hypocritical.
All right, Beowulf, what was going through your mind when you saw ZeroSpace?
So I have a couple things I want to get out of the way before we talk about ZeroSpace in particular. And again, full disclosure, I run Stormgate Nexus, so I am biased towards Stormgates a little bit because I have been producing so much content around Stormgate. That being said, ZeroSpace is a year further advanced-ish than Stormgate. So we're seeing a lot of direct comparisons right now, backwards and forwards.
Okay, but wait. I've heard that before, but I'm not sure that it's warranted. I've heard that echoed, but I don't know why.
Like, Frost Giant, isn't that true? Frost Giant started about 2 years ago, really 2.5 years ago, and isn't ZeroSpace about 3.5 years in?
No, we're about 3 years in, but it was one person developing mostly the engine for about a year. So most of us only came in about 2 years ago.
Well, that would be a similar thing to Stormgate then, though.
It could be, yeah, it could be, but it's just something that I've heard a lot said. And yeah, every time I read it or see it, I'm like, oh, well, is that true? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay, well then, fair enough. That is, I'm wrong there. But the big thing I want to say, regardless of timelines and direct comparisons, because again, they're different scopes, is the thing that there's this idea that only one RTS can be. It's either or. It's either ZeroSpace or Stormgate, or maybe StarCraft. But that's beside the point. A world where we have 2 really good RTS is a good thing. A world where we have 3 really good RTS is a good thing. It's not
competition in general is a good thing, I think, too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but it's not like, wow, ZeroSpace coming out now means Stormgate's going to have less appeal. Yeah, like having
I would argue that point. I would say that it will mean that.
Yeah.
If one is just better than the other, and I'm not saying that's the case, but if one is just better than the other, it will, like when there's 2 twins in utero, and one of them eats up all the nutrients, the other one doesn't have an easy time.
It's true. I had a friend that happened. Yeah,
but
I have a friend that's really skinny.
That implies that one is significantly better than the other, which I think they're both are going to, from what we've seen, I think both are going to be pretty solid.
Well, I think the problem boils down to this. You know what? I'm going to go with an insane analogy, just like Steadfast. This is like when you have like a friendship or a relationship that's actually toxic, but you don't really know. And then you have these other friendships that finally come along, or you really start to evaluate your friendships and you realize that guy never makes me feel like a piece of shit. That guy who's doing it might be the wrong one. Like, I'm not crazy. That's actually wrong. I feel like that's actually happening right now, where people were like, me and Stormgate, best friends, because it's my only hope. Please, for the love of God. Oh, I didn't really like that. Oh, I didn't really like that. Oh, I didn't really like that. But I think they can get better. I really believe. It's our only hope, guys. No one else getting close. And then some, brilliant Adonis of a man who's also kind and nice and has a stable job. It's just like, hey, and you're like, oh man, oh no, I don't like Stormgate. Shit. Like, I actually think that's happened for a lot of people, that this has kind of opened up the possibilities of a brand new RTS that feels and looks somewhat like StarCraft, and people are excited for, both in terms of its visuals, its backing, its approach to marketing, so on and so forth. That people are like rubber banding hard on Stormgate. It's not just like oh, okay, I see how that could be better. It's like, oh my God, I poured all my passion and heart and soul into Stormgate, and now it's actually not the biggest thing that we can hope on. There's actually other things we can hope on. Well, I don't even have to care about Stormgate anymore. I don't have to care. And if they're dicks about it, then that's an issue, like Bamwolf is talking about. Like, you can have more than one RTS that you like. Mm-hmm. But I think people are just really reevaluating how much credit they give Frost Giant and Stormgate because of ZeroSpace. So that's why I was kind of along more with Steadfast, which is like, I think this actually does hurt Stormgate.
I think it hurts Stormgate, but again, I think it's a false equivalency. Because again, they're in different stages of development. They have different scopes. And really, as someone said in the chat, like, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not. Take a recent example. Look at Baldur's Gate 3, right? Massive game in a kind of a dead genre, right? CRPGs were not a big thing. Well, now Baldur's Gate 3 is this massive game, and you're going to have a lot of people starting to look at other CRPGs and say, hey, this is awesome. I want to play Divinity Original Sin 2. I want to go play Path of Eternity, Pillars of Eternity. I want to play X, Y, and Z. And that's great. It's not that we don't live in a world where we have 5 RTS players. And now that there are 3 RTS, there are going to be 2 Stormgate players, 2 StarCraft players, and 1 ZeroSpace player, or whatever it is. Now we have these new games coming out that are generating hype. We're seeing Stormgate. I mean, we're going to talk about their Gamescom video in a little bit, but they're getting out there amongst new people. That's bringing new people in or bringing old people back, and suddenly we have 7. We have 7 RTS players, and now we have 9 RTS players, and now it's 3, 3, and 3, and suddenly everyone has more players, and suddenly the addressable market is bigger. So it's not a zero-sum game, and I don't. Maybe I have too much faith in RTS games and the gameplay and the community because I love this so much, but I don't think that we're in a situation where we have a capped number of players and we're not going to get any bigger than that. So we just hope we have one good game, because we have one good game and that keeps our community together. We have room for multiples. I mean, I think it's kind of this false equivalency that people are going into. And part of it is, there's this whiplash effect. Oh, all my hopes in Stormgate. Maybe not. But a lot of it is people who didn't like Stormgate from the start, and now they have something to seize on and say, look, I was right. I was right. This is shit. And now this is my other thing.
I think the other issue, I mean, you're talking about like these different games, and people are pointing out that there's like multiple games in a similar genre, like fighting games or tactical shooters. But I would say that the problem really also can be boiled down to it's too similar to the same ideals of Stormgate. And it's better. If this was very different.
I think we're a little different. I
don't
know how much
So the points that I'm going to say that makes it very similar is that I think you guys have talked about co-op mode and campaign, which people are really excited about. And Stormgate also had a lot of hope because they literally had the people who designed co-op. You're talking about the feeling of the game. And that's also like, I've always been super excited more so about that than anything else. I figured the only people who would be able to replicate StarCraft 2 would be the people who made it. And yet it looks like ZeroSpace is doing it. I think you've also had that kind of struggle of like heroes or non-heroes. Maybe heroes, yes, but in some kind of limited capacity. Exact same discussion's been happening for Stormgate. And the talents tree, the different types of factions, like the 4 factions you guys are going to have like different ways to make them slightly different. Also something that Stormgate has really like struggled with to determine like if that's going to be their identity. That might be behind the scenes, but oh well, I've already said it. The point is, I feel like for a lot of the core things that people were looking forward to, feeling of the gameplay, approach to casuals, different modes of combat, that's what people were really excited for, and ZeroSpace hit that much harder and better.
I mean, I'm terribly biased on that front, but I think that Stormgate has their eggs in the right basket on those fronts too. I'm confident that they can also deliver a good product. To Viamal's point, like there's a quote that says, "A rising tide lifts all boats."
I was thinking of that too.
I think that's very true. Like I think that the RTS market has been very small, but it's an issue of there hasn't been enough money and enough time and enough effort, I think, put into development. And like for all of us, I think in this call, and probably everyone watching, we're StarCraft 2 fans. We want the game to feel good. And that has been the barrier that has stopped most games, right, from actually reaching wider audiences. And everything from there, like if 2 games can meet a StarCraft 2 standard and come out, I think that then you start talking about the differences. Because I agree, we both have a focus on that, but it's almost like everyone should have a focus on that. It just hasn't been the case, right? Like I feel like that's like a prerequisite for me to be excited about the game that I'm working on. Yeah. I just wouldn't be if I couldn't execute on my ideas and have the feel that StarCraft 2 provides, or perhaps on some fronts better. And Stormgate is also aiming at better on some fronts, and I think that's exciting. As in terms of approach, I think that's where we are a little bit different. Like in terms of game design, for example. And I think that there's room there for both games to succeed. And yeah, I'm excited for that. And again, I think competition is healthy. I think we're having 2 different we started with two different conversations as well. One is the one that I just described, and the other one is direct comparisons, which are inevitable, right? Like that's just going to happen because you have two products next to each other and you're going to compare them. But yeah, as long as there's no malice and, no people being too mean to one side or the other, I think it's healthy in a sense, because it starts conversation for everyone, right? And it makes, I'm sure, us both want to deliver the best product that we can. And so monopolies are not sitting. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I'm just going to go ahead and kind of move over to Stormgate Infernal showcase before we get further into this discussion, because we basically already blended the two anyway. So let's go ahead and do that and then talk about some, the same stuff afterward, which I definitely had up. Oh, in VLC. There we go. So it's going to be a minute long. Does everyone have a link? I know Steadfast, since you haven't seen it, do you have a link? Are you ready to watch?
Oh, I'm just watching it on your stream. I'm going to...
Okay, great.
Oh, I thought, yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And I think it should have sound. So that's...
Your VLC is currently muted.
I know. Okay, no, it did not. I've been having so much fun with my new audio setup. It's great.
I could tell.
Of Earth's future.
There we go. Okay. So let's watch it in its entirety.
Stormgate is a spiritual successor to classic real-time strategy games like Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2. Stormgate will feature highly asymmetric armies fighting for control of Earth's future. Today we have an early look at our second faction, the Infernal Host. Infernals live and die by the code of victory at any cost. They have a powerful advantage, Shroud, fields of dark magic that strengthen their armies. The lowliest Infernal units are the Worker Imps. You might think they're cute, but don't get too close. Between these powerful lumbering brutes and the fiends that they unleash, Infernals will sacrifice everything, including themselves, to emerge victorious. On the music front, the Chainsmokers are advising us on our soundtrack. We're working with composers like Frank Klepacki of Command & Conquer. We'll share more later this year, including some of the friends we brought in to lend their voices to our co-op campaign.
All must serve.
Okay, which by the way, the music wasn't really highlighted so much in that, but it is really cool.
It's funny actually, because like I loved the Vanguard music, and I listened to the soundtrack once or twice. It's in the background of the video I put out, and I'm not a fan. Honestly, it is. Maybe it's just not to my taste, but
the
I don't
Vanguard
know.
Or the Infernals music.
The Infernals music, the track that we got.
Oh, I think you're absolutely in the minority. Most everyone who's listened has given it a thumbs up. Because most of the content creators made a video, guys. So me, Pig, maybe you guys as well. They included the sound, the song. And it's like a Zergy. It kind of starts off Protossy and ends Protossy, but it's mostly Zergy, and then Zerg mixed with Command and Conquer is like really the chord they struck rather nicely. So, but anyways, that's less important. Also, like the voice actors that they mentioned, less important. Obviously, I assume that most companies in games borrow voice actors anyway. So it's always cool when they get the same voice actor as a StarCraft thing or whatever they're trying to hint at. But yeah, anyway. No, the point is we're going to talk about the actual things that they revealed. So let's kind of do it in let's kind of like give an overview, I suppose. So basically this was shown, guys, yesterday at Gamescom, which is this huge thing where a lot of other games get shown. The first thing you have to keep in mind that a lot of people have not kept in mind is that Stormgate was only given 60 seconds. They could not make anything more because it sounded like kind of like it was a favor, basically, to even get them on the stage. So that's something that a lot of people have missed out on and a lot of comments that I've seen. So just get that out of the way first. But then people, I think, have very accurate critiques of the approach that Stormgate has taken in terms of marketing as a whole. But then also like this particular video, it's literally half used footage already, like stuff we've already seen. So a 60-second slot and you use 30 seconds of it to show us stuff that we've already seen, or are like behind the scenes images, which I always enjoy, but I can see if people are eager for every single drop of information from Stormgate, they get kind of upset when at the end of the day, if you include them 3D modeling the guys, we have 30-ish seconds, 35 seconds of new gameplay. Because there's the intro, the black screen, into the intro, into the strumming the guitar, into talking to the Chainsmokers, into final image with the Inferno, the infernal creature that no one likes, by the way. Everyone has made fun of this guy. And I can see why.
Which one? Wait,
I don't see a problem with it, honestly.
I know you don't. I saw your tweet, but...
the end.
That is
yes, yeah.
nightmare fuel, but not in a good way, you know?
It's Hot Topic nightmare fuel. It is a 17-year-old Infernal who just got put into some lead position in the Infernals because his daddy's like lead commander, and he doesn't have to change the way he looks. So he just kept his tooth ring.
He's also a furry, and you wouldn't want to hear about his politics. They are quite out there, let me tell you. This is a very unique and misunderstood indivial.
I can't believe we're getting into identity erasure in this podcast.
Sorry?
His experiences, whatever way Dagon decides to live his life, whatever his experience is valid, and we're erasing it. Right? I can't. Steadfast. I expected better of you.
Wow, I didn't say anything about being a furry as a bad thing. You were the one who just implied that. That is a. I was thinking this was a safe space for everyone, no matter how much fur they do or don't wear. But I was wrong. First thoughts? I don't know, man. Yeah, so I was not in the pre-alpha. I didn't get to see any of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I look at that and I am not inspired. Now, granted, I should say that personally, and we've discussed this before, I think that creep as Zerg is a bad mechanic. I don't like it. I think that it is a mechanic that is too yes or no, too hit or miss. If it hits, it hits, and it's so strong. And if you don't have creep, your units get fucked on. Either you fuck on them or they fuck on you. That's how it works with creep in StarCraft 2. And I'm worried that maybe this is like that. There's nothing to tell me that it's not. It's like some kind of obelisk. It looks cool, the obelisk in the center, but I don't want more creep-like mechanics. I'll say that. I don't want creep spread. I don't want my RTS to have that. Fuck no.
Ours has creep too.
Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But it for some reason you didn't highlight it as this is like a big deal. We were shown three new things there, because we already knew about the imp. We were shown the thing that splits into, is that a reverse Archon? Does it die over time? I don't know. There's not enough information there. It looks like a neat unit. We were shown about the creep, and we were shown. That thing right there. That looks cool. That's cool as fuck. Do they have timed life? Is there a resource cost for splitting up? Was it always just two tadpoles in a Pudge suit? You know, or like what's going on here? Like is this? Yeah, we see this. It looks a little bit like Diablo. Looks a little bit like Pudge. That was kind of cool. I was probably the coolest thing in the trailer.
Yeah.
And then was there a third new thing that they showed us?
Yes, technically it looks like the imp though.
Yeah, the immolation, or the implosion is what they called it in the press release.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to call it 2.5 because we knew that the imp had an ability.
Yeah, but it's very well executed on. I want to say, I think ZombieGrub can also maybe appreciate this on account of her background and animation and such. But I think the product, they showed little, but the product that they showed, I think, is very high quality. Like if they can keep those standards moving forward, I am hopeful, and I do want Stormgate to succeed. And I think I really like the two units and animations that they showed. As far as creep, I will say ZeroSpace, and to your point, it is not very oppressive. Like we only have vision. I don't like it. It only reduces vision when you go on creep, and then you can upgrade it. I have no idea how it works in Stormgate, and it's very difficult to judge this type of mechanics in a vacuum. And in StarCraft 2, I think it does some cool things, but I agree, maybe it's a little overtuned to where it makes the Zerg always have to be the defender basically, and forces Terran to be proactive. And I mean, that's part of the race's identity, and I love TVC, so I don't know. I don't think it's a major problem, but I think, yeah, reducing the importance of creep is kind of cool, and we just don't know what their approach is to it.
The key thing to point out here.
That's the thing is so I'm just gonna go with they showed us 2.5 things, and one of the things reminds me of personally, and I actually do think I'm very objective because I'm saying this as a Zerg player that I think creep is too strong. One of the 2.5 things that they showed us was an instant turnoff for me. Now, granted, is that their fault that I personally don't like it? No. But does that maybe speak to their lack of like strategic marketing, going back to what we were talking about before? Maybe. Should they have been like, hey, what are the things that the community doesn't like? Or what are the things that the community does like? What should we show? I don't know. It's subjective, obviously, but that's just my personal opinion.
So,
I mean, go ahead, CG.
Yeah, I will say the only thing I disagree with Cats is that I don't think this model is very well done. I think it looks unfinished. It's not very the last guy, the one who kind of looks like an imp but is only on 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
Limbs. Yeah, I think it looks unfinished. I think it looks like very basic, very nondescript. The silhouette's very similar to the imp, I think is what's going to happen. But then as far as anything else unique about it, there's not much. Actually, in game, I think it looks a lot cooler.
Yeah, exactly. The in-game footage of like the animations, I think, and the effects, it looked really good. Like the contrast is really nice as well with the terrain.
That's
those are the parts that excited me. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually looks like this is the unfinished model, and then the finished model's in the game.
Is it just the whole like?
That's weird.
A small swarming unit in an RTS is not going to be super high poly.
See,
Oh, sorry, go on.
It's not.
So like it's not going to look good when we're looking at like the full screen. Let's zoom in on this thing, but it's going to look great top down. Like
the polygons are the issue.
Oh yeah, but I mean, sorry, I'm using that as a
The thing is, though, it was their trailer. Like they got to choose what to show. Like nobody made them show an incomplete model. I don't want to make it sound like I'm like going at them because it does feel like that.
Yeah.
But I really I want Stormgate to succeed so fucking bad. You don't understand. I would literally kill people. That's not for legal reasons. That's not a real statement. But like, I look at this shit and I'm just like, I'm not inspired. I'm not inspired the way that I have been. And once again, sorry, go on.
I have to do one more negative thing because before you go into how much you're disappointed, just to get it out there, because I'm going to step back and actually be quite kind in a second, but I need to do one more because I read this comment on the Stormgate subreddit and I thought it was so fucking funny. The imp lost all its appeal from its concept art. No longer cute and funny and has no top teeth and weird piercings. Looks like it has fallen on hard times on the streets of San Francisco and needs an honest second chance. It's
I like that he put a city to it for sure.
Yeah, but like its sound, it's and that makes up for it.
But
that didn't come through on stream. The sound, I don't think. The imp?
Probably not. It was a little low. He kind of goes, it's most what you can hear. But if you compare it to the concept art that we were shown initially, it is very different. And I gave them credit in my video saying I understand why they changed it to kind of keep it in line with the general theme of the race, make everything look like it belongs to the same race with key differences and so on. But I agree. I think that the design that we were shown earlier, I think excited us a lot more. Do you guys remember that? I can bring it up.
You know what they could have done with this, by the way, is this could have been a brilliant meme where they have the before and after imp, where it's like the SpongeBob meme or something, where it's like smooth SpongeBob versus like jacked SpongeBob or something. Like this could have been a meme template, and it could have been really fun and funny, and it could have generated more stuff. I feel bad because like I hate being like, well, marketing is so important, but it's so fucking important. Like it's so goddamn important to make sure that you're putting together a good presentation. Like people, it may not seem that important, but people are formulating opinions as to which game to get and where to hitch their wagon. And right now, Stormgate has fallen really far behind ZeroSpace. And this didn't make up that gap, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm sorry as well. I did kind of mean to do a whole overview of the timeline of events, and I think I kind of got stopped at some point. but yeah, so ZeroSpace, gets announced, and then it looks really cool. And then the Stormgate Infernals actually finally gets announced because you don't know where it is in Gamescom. People literally waited for an hour and a half to see 30 seconds of new information. And then the Stormgate subreddit basically is nothing but negative. Like heavily negative, to the point that Gerald, the guy, the community outreach, I guess his title or something, actually comes in and kind of explains why this has happened the way that it is, including, I think, the explanation that they didn't even have that much time to show stuff, which is, I guess, fair, but then they did kind of, in my opinion, waste 35 seconds. By the way, I just want to say overall, like I was going to say, like I'll joke and I'll be harsh, but I do want to take a step back. I have actually not had that much of a problem with Stormgate. As far as everything that they've done, I've definitely critiqued it, but I don't think it's like the worst thing ever. And I don't think ZeroSpace coming out like it did should harm Stormgate. But, I am trying to understand it from the non-important people, the people who aren't involved in the process, right, in their point of view. And as soon as I read people's point of view of like, I waited an hour and a half for 30 seconds of new information, this is their choice, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that does make sense. That is bad. Okay, I see your point. Because otherwise, my entire video on my YouTube was actually positive because I did it before it was actually released. So, anyways, that's just the thing I wanted to kind of preface with, is that I understand where Stormgate's coming from, but I actually very much understand where the community is coming from as well. And it is heavily negative.
I think that's why I think it's interesting because Stormgate unintentionally created that with me because I wasn't in on some of the earlier stuff. So I have that like first look situation. Obviously, I've seen a little bit, but I didn't get to see like everything with the Infernal. So I am kind of like the bridge between the everyman and the elites. Like maybe like a little bit like I can walk both worlds, or like if regardless of who wins, whether it's the
like a Jesus type character,
kind of like Jesus. Yes, exactly. I'm just like Jesus. Yeah.
Okay,
that is what I was going for. Maybe even just like like we could even upgrade it to just straight up God, But yeah, like I feel like I have the ability to see both the like high tier stuff, the really cool stuff behind the scenes, but then also I get to see what it's like from, you only see one direction. You don't get to see behind the fourth wall, and it's made for a really interesting dichotomy. And I think that's why I might be feeling already weirdly, and this is really bad, I think I'm already feeling Stormgate fatigue. That's fucking terrible.
Oof. That is a bad sign. Yeah, so kind of moving over into just general like discussions of strategies here, because again, we can't talk too much to the actual enjoyment of the games, even those who have played Stormgate, because it's such an early process. So that's what I want to focus on. And in that, I do want to bring in a third RTS that I think is the bottom barrel example, which is Immortal Gates of Fire. Here we go. It's that time again for the talk show. But no, like that I think is actually the main problem with Immortal. Like, my opinions on anything else is not important. Basically, we are seeing that yet again. To be fair, the community doesn't really know what it wants until it's given something, and then it can sharply critique better once it's been given something. You know what I mean? Because people will be like, show us anything, please, love God, show us anything for Stormgate, please, anything, please. And then they do, and then there's the exact criticism and feedback that they were afraid of getting, which is, judging it based off an alpha thing, not even beta. Or, putting the opinion of the game attached with the marketing strategy, which is not their goal. They want to make a good game, but maybe they don't have the best marketers, and so on and so forth. But, initially people were like, please give us anything. And now we have an example of someone who didn't give us everything, and we're like, that's so much better. And we have an example of someone who gave way too much, and that is Immortal Gates of Fire, which is that they literally started showing us stuff, and they were still not even using the teapot model for some of their units. That they showed us stuff before that. They hosted tournaments on bad computers that lagged all the time. So if you go back and watch the broadcast, you can't even really do it. 3 years ago. And then apparently I watched one like 6 months ago or something. No, actually, I think it was at Gamers8, so very recently. And there was still a teapot somewhere. I was like, how? This is, I want to go up and check and see if they've improved, and they don't do it. So I'm already one step farther than a lot of people will take to give that game any credit. I actually checked back in to see if they were past the teapot, and they still aren't. And that just means that I am so less likely to go and check it again. So I think it's kind of neat. Sorry, Immortal Gates of Fire, but it's kind of neat that we have basically 3 examples. We have an example of someone who did everything way too much, way too soon. And then we had someone who started drip feed, maybe under pressure, maybe because they really thought this is the best way to work with content creators. And we have someone who waited forever to actually show us something. And with these 3 examples, I think with the community feedback, we can say 100% that 3rd example won out. That was the best approach.
To defend Immortal Gates of Fire just a little bit here, I think that we had the luxury to be self-funded because the like Marv, the person that's in charge of the project, basically he cashed out of a successful phone game venture, and he's been basically self-funding the project, right? And so it's basically like his money and his time, because he's also our lead engineer. So if he paid himself, it would probably be twice the investment because he works 24/7. But the point is, we had enough funding to actually develop a product and not just say, hey, help us out, like Immortal Gates of Fire maybe had to do earlier, right? So we would have also liked to maybe take a slightly different approach where we didn't show as much, and that was kind of our initial gut check, was like exactly what you're saying. Like, look at what happened with Immortal Gates of Fire, like they showed too much. But the push internally, like from me in particular, and I think from everyone else agreeing eventually, was our game is ready to show. Like, like the issue wasn't the timing or the amount, but more the stage at which they were at. And we have that luxury to have developed enough to show a more finished product.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a wonderful statement to make, because Immortal is also the least funded out of all of these examples. And so you do have the discussion of, is it better to show and then maybe get people interested, or is it better to hold off until we have a better product to show? And then sometimes that latter option doesn't even really exist because you need the money. You need to show something. Exactly. So that's definitely a good point. But at this point, Immortal, has really just gone years. So it's very hard to expect it to change and be polished, basically. So that's just an unfortunate thing about being such a startup, I suppose.
So ZG, do you mind if I just piggyback real quick on your comparison previously? Because you only mentioned 2 people, like toxic relationship stuff. So we had the 2 that we've talked about most recently. So Blizzard currently is they are the one that we've been in a long-term relationship with for a very long time. And, there's not so much spice in the marriage anymore. It's not the way it used to be. So now we'll go out to bars and they'll just make out with other people in front of us. And we're like, hey, can you not do that? And they're like, shut up. And then they hit us. But we didn't have a choice for a long time. And then along comes Immortal Gates of Fire. And they're like, we caught them on a really good day. And we met them in a coffee shop. It was a really nice meet cute. And we were like, hey, man, like these guys are great. They're charming, like they're funny. We exchanged numbers. Like, oh man, I can't wait to get to know this person a little bit better. And then they we went out for a date, and they showed up in like a 1993 Toyota Camry, which there's nothing wrong with. It's a totally super reliable car. But it's like a little bit broken down. They asked to split the bill, and we're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then it comes time for the bill, and they're like, actually, I forgot my wallet. Can you cover this? And you're like, oh, okay. Sure. Why'd you ask to split the bill then? And they're like, don't worry, I'll get the next one. And then, we kind of talk to their friends, and their friends are like, yeah, they're kind of a bit of a bum. They've been saying they were going to go back to college for like 5 years now, and they're not doing it. And even their friends are trash talking them, and you're like, damn, you okay? And they're like, yeah, no. I swear you just caught me. I'm going to clean my room soon. Like, don't worry, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get on top of it. And they keep promising all these things. And it's been like 4 years, and we're like, okay, man, have a good life, you know?
So just to be clear, Immortal was the not abusive but still bad boyfriend.
Well, we didn't even get into a relationship with them, but like we were thinking about it, and then like all these red flags came up. Blizzard is the actively abusive partner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you projecting here, Steadfast?
I'm like,
no.
I'm like,
what makes you say so?
But where is Steadfast in this? Like, what is he projecting?
Thinking back into personal history a little bit.
I just watch a lot of Paul Rudd movies. What can I say?
Anyway, yeah, no, that definitely goes along with the analogy I set up, I guess. The point is that they're in a different situation. Stormgate and ZeroSpace are definitely a little more similar in that I think they had big backers with big amount of money and big amount of influence, and they were able to get sponsors.
I don't know about big, but we definitely put in I think similar.
You guys have Riot as well, don't you?
No.
Why are there Riot logos on your merchandise?
Wait.
Oh.
So this is something that I noticed, and I asked chat, I think, to just look and confirm for me. But I'll ask chat again here. Is that not the Riot logo from the
No,
postcode?
it's not a Riot logo, but it is a fist bump of sorts. It's a I think I just asked. They said it's a fist bump, it's a cartoon hand.
You guys should definitely change that.
Yeah, we should probably change that. Yeah. It was confusing too. We don't have Riot.
Because the Riot fist is like more blocky and kind of and angular, I think.
I've been told we already changed it.
Okay, good.
On account probably of similar feedback, I would imagine.
Oh wow, that is very similar.
Yeah, that really.
All right. Okay. Cool. Then good to know. So Stormgate does have Riot.
Yeah.
They like that is official. We know that. But ZeroSpace was really just one guy. Some people, being able to put in as much money as they could to have something released.
Yeah,
which makes it different, but not necessarily better for Stormgate, does it?
I think no. I know. I think it. I don't think it makes it better or worse, but it does make it understandable. Again, Kat's correct me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like Stormgate has a longer runway than
I would say so, yeah.
than ZeroSpace does.
What do you mean by runway?
Like Stormgate has about $35 million worth of funding. I think the last time that was made public. I don't think ZeroSpace is $35 million worth of funding. I could be wrong here. That'd be awesome, but
nowhere close. Yeah, but I will say a very important point to make is Marv, the person who started the project, is also our senior and most invested person working on the engine, for example. So he doesn't pay himself, right? And he can work endlessly, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of our greatest assets is even though we may not have the same amount of runway, we are all, a lot of us at least are putting a lot of hard work because, we want to see the project succeed. So I think
to be clear, I think what you all are doing is fantastic. The point is that it gives Stormgate more room to do the baseline stuff or behind the scenes and not build things out to a playable candidate as quickly. Because you don't have to, because you have that runway.
What I'm hearing right now is that while Stormgate may have more money, Marv has that dog in him. How many people from Stormgate, from Frost Giant, have got that dog in them? You know?
Well,
that's not fair, Steadfast.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into that territory.
I'm memeing. I'm completely memeing.
I am going to say that this still makes Stormgate look worse, doesn't it, though? Basically, we're just talking about how they have more money and more employees and people with more experience directly involved in this, and they're doing worse overall.
Again, I don't think they are. I think that there's this perception that they are because again, ZeroSpace had this awesome first week where you had showcase gameplay and you had two factions and everything. But and again, I'm not saying this because I'm not saying anything negative about ZeroSpace right now. There are different scopes to the projects. ZeroSpace does not appear to have plans for, say, a full comprehensive map editor for user-generated content the way that Stormgate does. They're not building effectively their own engine on Unreal 5 with Snowplay and rollback netcode and all these things that haven't been done in RTS games.
It's Unreal 4, but we have our own engine for sure. Yeah.
Okay. There are things that Stormgate is doing that are just not necessarily in the scope of what and that's not a bad thing, by the way. I think ZeroSpace, for what we've seen, it's fantastic. I cannot wait to get my hands on the pre-alpha, and I think in December is when that starts. But they're wildly different scopes, which is totally fine. But I think there's a lot of perspective right now that says, Stormgate's worse. It's doing worse. They're just doing their scope is bigger. So they're, even with the same amount of time, they are doing things. They're not going to necessarily have as much everywhere because they're laying the baseline. We will have Infernals, and we will have that third faction. We'll have XYZ. And on top of that, there's going to be the map editor that they've said is going to be pretty much the same thing that they're going to have, that their devs are using to develop the game. That's not something that ZeroSpace is going to have unless, I don't know, they blow the apps, they blow things out of the water, which is, again, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it is a different scope.
Yeah, the editor is a dream for us. For example, we can't develop that right now with our current funding. It's just very expensive, right? So, and to your point, like, yeah, it's different scopes because of how they got to approach things, and they also enter the market as far as like announcing a little bit earlier in that sense, and I think that they should have had different priorities. So it's kind of, to some degree, it's comparing apples to oranges, in some sense. Whereas for us, we had to show a product. Right. For example, like marketing, we've been discussing a lot of marketing and the marketing strategy. I've been heavily involved in that. I didn't expect to be heavily involved in marketing at all. Right. But it's just what we're working with is, like kind of like we don't really have people who are working on like all of these different approaches. And we're mainly focused on gameplay. So it's like, okay, how can we make a marketing strategy? I guess I guess I won't sleep tonight, but it's that kind of thing where I think, yeah, you're completely right. Stormgate has had different focuses, and in some sense, like for the Infernal reveal as well. I mean, our timing was not favorable for them, right? So yeah, apples to oranges, and I think that maybe they might change their focus according to everything that has happened. I really have no idea. But I am still very, very confident that they can deliver an excellent product. I worked with these guys for 4 years. I absolutely love them, and I've always had faith in them. And I really think they can do great. And the tides and the boats and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I believe that to be true.
I think the other thing is that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna say that, like, definitely when it comes to comparing the two games, there is no comparison. But when I say better or worse, I am mostly talking about kind of a general idea that is community favoritism.
Perception.
Perception, yeah, exactly. And I think at this point, Stormgate was already not doing any favors, I feel like, in that department. People who were hyped, and they weren't adding a lot more. And people who were hyped when they didn't like something were very conservative about their critique and negativity because they're just, in general, so much more excited about the potential. But ZeroSpace has absolutely come out of the gate swinging and made everyone very excited. So I just wanted to clarify that before anyone's like, well, you can't tell how the game plays and all that, like, because I can't. But I would say, and it goes back to our earlier discussion, that perception is very important. Like, I honestly believe that Stormgate has taken a blow because their marketing strategy has proven unsuccessful. Especially when you have something comparable right there doing a much better job. It was already something I think that was worth critiquing. And now with something that has done its job very well, it's a fact. It's like a fact. Stormgate is doing worse on the perception front. And people are less excited about it the more that they keep making these marketing faux pas. Which, it sucks. I don't want it to be the case. But I also do 100% believe that will affect the ultimate outcome of the game. As much as people would love all of the ships to rise on the high tide, blah, 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 blah. I think that Stormgate is getting closer to the Immortal Gates of Pyre problem than it is to getting to the ZeroSpace excitement.
That is another thing, though. They have had more time out there to be critiqued as well, right? Whereas we are a new product, so that's gotta play in our favor as well. And part of the reason why we can do this also is because we have 2 more factions coming, for example, and we still have a lot of content to show. But definitely, I mean, we'll have to slow down the showing probably in a couple of months to more periodic updates and stuff like that, and until alpha at least, right? So
Yeah.
It's to be expected to some degree to gather a little bit more criticism when you've been out there for longer.
In a way, they have been the first one forward, kind of like a Blizzard, actually. You know, we talk a lot about how Blizzard just was too soon in StarCraft 2. They missed the gigantic shift in video gaming and esports. And Stormgate's kind of like a little tiny bit of that, where it's like, well, how do you convince this very diehard, passionate core community, as well as the casuals, that, you know, it's worth playing, and how do you get people excited, and then how do you continue getting funding, which is definitely going to be an issue for them despite their bigger funding compared to ZeroSpace. So yeah, I absolutely feel for them, but I think it is a fact now that Stormgate has done worse. Stormgate actually needs to really try and do something big to draw the attention again of the general RTS sphere, because they have the attention of people who are excited for Stormgate, but the general RTS sphere, yeah, that's going to have to be something different. And I would suggest doing like battle reports. So,
although I think we have two different spheres of influence almost that we need to talk about, ZG. Because on the one hand, we have the people that frequent the Stormgate subreddit and the people that are watching this show and things of that nature that are really, really tuned in, or at least very vocal about what's happening. And that is one set of feedback, one set of things. And then they're the people that just read PC Gamer, or the people that just tune into Gamescom and watch whatever, or read or watch different gaming media. And the one thing we do have to give Frost Giant a little bit of credit for is we talk about their marketing maybe not being the best here, and I think that's fair. I think the big issue was that they couched this as the Infernal reveal, and it's 3 units and really only 10 seconds of stuff.
To be clear, the rest of their marketing has been abysmal. Go on.
That's fair. Point being is Stormgate is doing a really good job of getting themselves out there in a whole host of media things. They have PC Gamer articles. They're in the PC Gaming Show. They're in Gamescom, and it sounds like they didn't even have to pay for their Gamescom spot, which is expensive. So that's why they had 60 seconds. They have Dean Takahashi, and they have they are spreading their influence a lot. They're doing a very good job of getting their name out there amongst a bunch of different things. And a part of that is connections, part of that is money, part of that is whatever it is. And I think you're right. They are stumbling a little bit in the advertising to the sweaty, the try hard RTS community that's going to go contribute to their subreddit and things like that. That small subsection of their community. But I think they are doing a very good job of getting their name out there and letting people know that this thing exists, and kind of hitting the mass market a little bit, even if the core market's struggling.
But I would say that they're doing a poor job on that, though. They're watering down, I think, the impact that their marketing could have by trying to market like this, actually. I'm trying to formulate a coherent sentence here. Basically, it feels like every step that they've made to show stuff, aside from just big idea talking, like some of their earlier PC Gamer articles, has been faulty. The cinematic they showed to appeal to a casual fan base with pretty graphics and the general story was bad. The 60 seconds they had on the most recent Gamescom, I think generally people have been disappointed in, and are right to say that the casual audience who watched might now even think that this is a mobile game. Like the connections that they make in people's brains that say, like, I need to go check that game out again. I need to see what's happening on the game again. It's just not, I don't think it's working. I honestly don't. I think that people are like, oh, like if I'm interested in RTS, I'll check that out again. I'll keep that, like I'll put like a calendar reminder, but no one's getting really excited. Except the hardcore community, which they already have. And so, again, it's a very tough to, like, I'm not a marketing person. I'm not involved in any of these games. And I know it's tough to toe that, it's a tight rope, and you're trying to balance between, like, getting your name out there and having a product worth showing. But yeah, I would say that I would have appreciated more of a Blizzard-like approach. Like we were talking about towards the beginning of this, which is that they say they're coming up with a game, and then we wait a long time, and they keep talking about them in hypotheticals, And then when they have battle reports to show, so 2 different races where they can battle each other with pros, that's what they show people. Because at the end of the day, that's what the hardcore audience wants. And that's what the casual audience will also strongly remember, in my opinion. Not demon fighting mech, but rather, oh, this is an RTS on a PC that looks like it plays well, looks like it's kind of like StarCraft, and that's what I wanted to see. Thank you. Like, I think that actually is the same thing for both competitive and casual fans. Both want to see that.
I agree with you, but similar to us, for example, where we're having to show a lot early because we are trying to get funded. I feel like they, and this is pure speculation. I'm on NDA with them, but I don't have any information on this, so it's just pure speculation from an outsider perspective. But we do know that they have backing and they have investors, and they probably have to satisfy their demands as well to some degree, as far as timeline is concerned. Would be my guess. So I'm sure they have that sort of pressure to put stuff out there to deliver a product before maybe they would otherwise like to. And it's very relatable again, because for us, for example, we have a kind of like a similar but different problem in that we have to reveal a lot, and we have to take some risk in terms of like burnout from showing a lot, because we need to get funded, right? And for them, it's the opposite. It's like they're funded, so they have to show for it. Type thing is my speculation.
So I've got 2 points that kind of piggyback on both of what you're saying. One, so I guess what we were all talking about, the mass appeal concept. So, if you expose Stormgate to 10 million people, fan-fucking-tastic, awesome. How many of them are going to do more than just they watched XQC do it for a little bit, they read a little blurb? They're not going to see anything else. Maybe they didn't see the Infernal reveal, maybe they didn't see anything else. But this is speculative, but what they probably will end up doing is asking their one friend who has more of a finger on the pulse about Stormgate. So maybe that person, they do go to the Stormgate subreddit. They did wait an hour and a half for 35 seconds of new content that, like ZombieGrub said, was pretty unimpressive. Maybe those people, maybe 30 people ask that one person. That one person's like, no, it's shit. Fuck that game. Does it matter if the game's good? Not at all. Because now 31 people, because of one person's bad perception, feel that this game is not worth playing. And that is tragic. Whereas you have ZeroSpace, on the other hand, that I haven't heard a negative thing yet. Now, that's not to say that it won't be negative things, but the perception is certainly positive. And once again, I don't want to, because this really feels like I'm making it personal against Frost Giant. I genuinely really want to double, triple, quadruple down on the fact that I want them to succeed. And also, it is important to note that I'm talking about this kind of from a position of privilege of having we've seen the result of these 3 different methodologies. But we still have to say it. We still have to say that if this is a marathon, which it absolutely is, one runner stumbled multiple times out of the gate, and the other one got the cleanest start you could ask for and has really impressed the hell out of us. And the other one forgot there was a race today. That was another Immortal Gates of Fire
Maybe
shot.
they didn't know that there was a race. That's
Yeah.
part of it too.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go off on this guy who accused me of gaslighting because I said another approach would maybe have worked better for Stormgate. You are so fucking stupid. And now you're saying that was an okay thing to say because I represent the RTS community, not just my personal opinion. Shut the fuck up. God damn, I am going to ban you, you gaslighting motherfucker. All right, we're good.
The people that believe that we are in some way, I mean, obviously, yeah, there's no shade to Cats right now, but Cats does work on ZeroSpace, so there is, I expect you to say good things about ZeroSpace, but the people that in general that think that content creators are in some way, shape, or form paid to shill one game versus another here, and especially something like when we're looking at Stormgate and ZeroSpace and whatever, is just kind of blatantly ridiculous.
We didn't pay anyone, just to be clear.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Also,
yes, that is very true. Sorry.
By streaming on Twitch, we legally have to say when we're paid. Legally,
yes.
We would literally be breaking the law. You have to have an exclamation ad. Hashtag ad.
You actually have to do more than that. Now you have to do something in the dashboard.
Sorry.
You have to do something in the dashboard.
There's more stuff you have to do. But you legally have to say if you are paid in order to stream on Twitch. That's just an aside.
It's actually an important thing to note, though, because the amount of people who jump at us when we are positive about Stormgate is insane. Like, how dare we are positive about it? That has actually been an issue. And now I guess that we're kind of talking about the problems, people aren't, saying, well, you've been paid by ZeroSpace to talk negatively about Stormgate. Where are those conspiracy theorists?
No, it's actually Immortal Gates of Pyre that wants to tear both of them down.
Oh my
so they
God.
Can come back.
The big brain conspiracy theory. But no, seriously, that is an important point to make.
Yeah, we actually had, we reached out to like 5-6 YouTubers outside of Grant and Pig who already work with us. And like a couple of them brought up like, a potential sponsorship. We declined both of them. One made a video anyway. The other one didn't. And the reason we decline is because we want the honest opinion out there, right? So it's like, you don't have to take it from me. You can watch their videos and what they think, and they're completely unrestricted, unpaid, everything.
Yeah. Oh, I think we've kind of talk about this a little bit to death. I mean, kind of the TLDR is that I think we generally agree that let's take ourselves out of the equation, that the community is a lot more excited about ZeroSpace than they are about Stormgate right now. And there's a lot of reasons as to why that is, and there's a lot of understandable reasons. There's a lot of mistakes made that I think could have been done better, but hindsight's always easier. There's things that we could still go forward and do better, because we are talking about so early on in both of the game's life cycles. And at the end of the day, these types of conversations and these types of issues might not matter whatsoever. You guys might be totally right. We talked about earlier. We don't know. But I can just say for a fact that right now, people are definitely doing the looking over the shoulder meme with Stormgate as their girlfriend. So, and Stormgate's really quite chill about this, by the way. Just shout out to them for constantly supporting other RTS and tweeting about them and just being generally excited for RTS. So
they were all tweeting that they'd all backed ZeroSpace, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Steadfast.
Yes. So that begs the question, because we're talking about all the things they did wrong. What can they do? What is the next step for Stormgate from a marketing perspective? Does anyone have a solution? Personally, I think that they should, and this is going to come off as a literal, me helping out a homie, but it kind of is. I actually recently just talked to No Regret about some cool stuff that he had in mind, not for Stormgate, but just in general, just ideas, very innovative ideas about a company he was working for. And he is a very intelligent individual. I think Stormgate should reach out to him. That's my 2 cents on the matter. Get someone who really has good, smart, innovative ideas, really can nail the marketing. But yeah, does anyone have any things? I saw you raising your hand there, Bamolf.
Yeah, I think the big thing is so going to the trade shows is important, right? A lot of people watch it. It is exposure, whatever. Go back to the videos they were putting out, the 5-10 minute long developer discussion show things. Like, part of the problem here is what are you going to show in 60 seconds? You have news. Chainsmokers, I think everyone agrees that's a bit of a weird choice. I'm reserving judgment, but whatever. That's big news. That hits a different demographic. Frank Lepecki is big news. Go back to what we were seeing through the start of the year before it had to be 1 to 2 minutes of content. And that was when people were really in love with Fresh N, I think, because it's like, wow, we have this insight. It feels great. We're seeing all this stuff. We're really kind of getting a sense of what's happening, and we're just not getting that now. So I agree. Yeah, go talk to No Regret. Maybe people who are more I hesitate to use the term like TikTok native, but more in tune with modern internet. I don't know, but go back to the desert. Like, people love it when they feel involved, and go back to that level, because again, I think that was a solid, and that's in part where we're getting right here. That's why people are liking ZeroSpace. They really, there's a lot of access and there's a lot of insight that 60 seconds just doesn't give.
Well, if I were to specifically advise them on a 60-second spotlight, I would have said that you need a jam packet full of things you haven't 100%. Seen yet. Even to the point of getting rid of your logo, which I don't know if that's like a legal thing or something, but like every second matters. But then in general, I would say that because we are literally comparing two things, right? So that guy who I yelled at is stupid. was trying to say how like Blizzard used to do the same thing, like not talk about something for a long period of time, and people hated it. And I know we brought that up as far as when they announced a new game. I actually really don't remember that being a significant problem when it came to the Heart of the Swarm or Legacy of the Void situations. I don't remember that. Maybe because I was involved, but I thought that was another reason that guy was stupid. What I remember is a lot of excitement around the expansions, but that's just you can't really compare it to the actual like development of a game. And you can't even compare Wings of Liberty development and marketing to these games either, because it's an established IP with one of the world's best art team. So if they did want to only show a cinematic, Blizzard would get away with that. Stormgate could not.
Also, Blizzard cinematics have always been straight fire.
Yeah.
So they have high expectations. Like that shit's good, and
almost better than the games.
Usually better than the games.
Overwatch.
I think it's the most expensive per minute cinematics in the world out of anywhere.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
So yeah.
So they can get away with that type of stuff, right? Which is just so it's just like comparing marketing strategies to StarCraft 2 is just completely like incorrect, I suppose. But I would say with the hindsight of what's going on here and the excitement that was shown from ZeroSpace and so on, I would say now my advice would be to chill on the drip feeds. Wait until there are 2 playable factions, and then I think you can actually do a lot more 2 playable factions as well, just in general. Like, you know, if you can show all the gameplay you want of one faction versus one faction, that's not really going to be exciting, but 2 factions could probably have a lot more excitement. And you don't even need necessarily to go to 3. Like, you know what I mean? Like, 1's bad, 3's okay, 2 is like actually really great. And 3 would add on more, but it just wouldn't be as impactful. I'm trying to think of a phrase here, but the point is, wait until that.
It doesn't have the oomph.
Yeah, it's just like the amount of excitement you get once a second faction is involved, like it skyrockets. And then it does still get higher when a 3rd and 4th are revealed, but I don't think it's comparable to that first time that you see 2 factions fight in an RTS. Not a mirror matchup. That's what I'm trying to say.
Although,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I am excited to mess up. Like I think never mind. I'm just agreeing with what you're saying. I'm excited to have my workers explode on things like that. But again, that's the 2 faction idea. So I'm go ahead. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd also say, like, you know, it's no secret that a lot of us have been playing Stormgate, even though like we're not supposed to say that like right off the bat. We can answer, I guess. I'm just gonna say it.
Hey, ZombieGrub, are you playing Stormgate?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
There we go.
But I'm actually not playing it that much because I feel like the development isn't as far along as it would be necessary to really give a lot of good feedback, which hopefully isn't breaking any NDA. So I'll say wait on that.
I have played enough such that I think Stormgate could benefit a lot from a small, brief little call with me personally. If they want to do that, that's totally up to them. If they don't want to do that, that's totally up to them. But I am opening the door, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of my time. You know, I to be honest, I don't want to wade through the other thing. I'm asking to be treated like the level of elite society that I am, you know?
Instead of how much do you charge per minute?
Well, that's something we talk about after the fact. We just send them the bill. No, I would obviously do it for free. I want the game to do well.
Ask how much
I want
it is,
the game to do well.
Got it.
Sorry?
You have to ask how much it is. You can't afford it. Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway. Can we summarize this whole discussion? I guess it's just basically marketing's hard. People do things good and you realize you maybe should have done that instead. It's life. It happens. It's very early on in both games and many more changes will be made. But there is a better strategy before us now that maybe Stormgate will now adopt. Maybe they will stand firm on the idea that, you know, kind of more drip feeding and working with content creators during the development process from the very first race is better.
Now,
and we'll see what wins out.
They already have done one thing differently. Is that, remember at PC Gaming Show, they kind of drip fed each one content creator had a unit, right? So
yes.
Like Artosis had the medtech and whatever.
Yeah.
And this time I think they gave the story beat reveals to everyone at the same time and then said, hey, you know, do what you want. Which is, I guess not proof of anything more than they are kind of, I guess, updating their strategy a little bit. okay.
Okay.
I would say that's not them updating their strategy. That's them like kind of stepping back from strategy, because like I actually think that the individual unit reveal was like a neat concept. I think that was pretty cool. If anything, I think they've taken a step backwards in terms of like good decision making to less good decision making.
I mean, I know as a content creator, I was a little annoyed that, you know, only five YouTubers were able to get the reveal cinematic ahead of time, and the rest of us had to react afterwards.
Oh yeah, no, that's not a smart move. That pisses off. Stuff like that, stuff like YouTube content that is literally worth actual dollar value. When it's posting a unit on Twitter, something like that, that's fine. But when it's actual money in the pocket and significant exposure, playing favorites with content creators is how you piss off the other content creators. And that is not going to work out as a long-term strategy.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, they've moved back from that. They've maybe we will see unit turnarounds later on, but like we all got the stuff at the same time, which is just really, really nice.
True. I'm just talking about this specifically, the unit reveal where they just put it on Twitter. I think that's fine. I think as long as you're not doing something that has a literal financial impact.
Yeah.
Or honestly, they don't actually need to give it to the other content creators. They can just give it to, they can just tweet out one unit at a time. Actually, why are they giving it to other content creators? Why would you not just make it off your own Twitter account or whatever?
Because they're trying to engage the community, is I think what this is. Remember, like $35 million is a lot, but it's not Blizzard money.
No.
Not by a long shot.
I don't know.
So their strategy, and they've been rather open about this, is they are trying to, I think that their phrase, they're trying to develop this with the community. And one of the ways you can do that, one of the ways you can show that is saying, hey, we are going to have your favorite content creators show something, right? And then that makes the community more engaged, which I'm not making any comment. I'm not making any statement on the value of that one way or the other, but that is the approach I think that they're taking. And then the big stuff, okay, fine, you have PC gaming show, but and remember, outside of the unit reveals, everything else was coincident. The PC gaming show reveal was embargoed, so the content creator reaction videos couldn't go up until the actual video was showed. Same, I assume the same thing was true here. So from that perspective, I guess the only thing that they show that they revealed uniquely on certain people's channels was the specific units, and those units had kind of already been shown in the PC gaming trailer anyways. This was just a little bit more in depth about it.
Someone in the chat actually makes a good point. I think you might have seen it too at the same time there, ZG. And things that have people questioning some of the decision making is some of the content creators that were brought on.
Oh. Are you talking about Husky?
Talking about Husky. He left. He left. Dad went out for a pack of smokes. But instead it was to, marry another YouTuber. But now he's back because mom is like, in love with us now. Or not in love with us, in love with dad, this is going off the rails, but you know where I'm going.
Okay.
It's a weird situation. It's a weird situation, and I think it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
I see what you're saying. Another marketing tactic of theirs also backfired.
Yes,
that's what you're bringing up.
Yes, thank you. Oh my God.
And it did.
Ramble translator, agree. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's what we're all here for. This is why I talk show, not a monologue. But I agree with you. I think that ultimately backfired. I think especially because there was actually no upside. It's really bizarre. Because the upside would have been that they angered a lot of the hardcore people who felt betrayed. But then the upside was that they would have gotten like thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people because Husky used to be that type of pull. Mm-hmm. But it was used to be. So potentially damaging your reputation with this hardcore community, their opinions on the guy, and potentially damaging relationships with people who you want to work with directly because rumor has it he burned a couple of bridges. Not with me. This is not about me, but he did. And all for some guy who now pulls in, 20 Twitch viewers. Didn't make much sense.
I think it's 80 now.
I'm sorry. It didn't make much sense. And, I think the counter argument that I've heard is that, well, he knows how to make a successful brand. And I'm like, well, we'll see. We'll see.
No, okay, so I want to address that because Husky was first to market, period. That is it. That is the only reason he was big. People enjoyed his content genuinely, but can he do the same thing now that he will not be first to market? I mean, time will tell. Maybe he can. Maybe he's going to put me in my place. But I don't think he doesn't have like high level strategic analysis. Yeah, I don't want to make this a personal attack.
I was going to say this is getting pretty close to personal attack.
It's getting pretty close. It's getting pretty close. That's why I'm reeling it back in. But like, he's not. It's not like Todd, for example, or like, what's a good example? Like, like somebody like Grubby, who is just an absolute paragon. Like Grubby plays Dota 2. Watching him play that has been a fucking delight. He is so awesome to watch. He's just a great thing. And to be honest, I don't think I actually bring myself much to the table, but I have grinded the fuck out of the knowledge that I've gotten. I'm not like, I have some funny analogies and shit, but like I have worked my dick off to get to where I have. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe not hundreds, tens of thousands of hours of casting. So I've earned my way to that. Has Husky done the same thing? Has he done tens of thousands of hours? I don't know.
I mean, I think that's a, kind of besides the point anyway. It is something a little more personal over there. But the point was, as I was trying to do, like, I was trying to be a little more like factual and just say like, my opinion aside, my official stance on the Husky drama, because I'm sure that has to be said now, is that I did like his casting back in the day. I would say I was a general fan, but not a diehard fan. I did not like the way he left StarCraft, and I do believe the rumors in which he burnt bridges with his closest friends, because I was friends with In Control and I heard things. And so I generally don't think he's a fantastic candidate to build a relationship with. That's my official stance. And so more technical sided and less opinionated time is that, actually when you look at someone who could potentially damage your brand, and it's not because of some silly reason, right? It's like legitimate things went wrong. Why would you risk that? Like if I am a big head, I'm in at the head of the table and I'm wearing my business suit and I'm like, we really need to curate people we work with. That person's dangerous for our brand. That person's dangerous for our brand. That person might be dangerous for our brand. Did that discussion ever happen? Probably not. And that's okay, I guess. But the end result is that they did involve someone who the community dislikes and doesn't have many upsides. And they are eating crow on that for a couple of people, I suppose. A couple of people really want to see them, I guess, not work with particular people anymore. Is it overall the biggest issue? I don't think so, which is why I usually don't talk about it. But Steadfast did point it out the chat.
Yeah, I went a little off the rails there.
Again, I'm okay with Frost Giant having a big tent, though. Like, yeah, there are some people that someone doesn't like. Like, it doesn't... I would much rather have them say, yeah, anyone who kind of wants to get involved in this project and create content about it can. I think that's a much better approach than really heavily gatekeeping it.
Yeah, it's not like he was hired to do their first event or something too, right? Like this is actually like Husky's a little weird when it comes to answering Reddit comments, which is that, like, legitimately, if he also was completely quiet during all of these controversies, I'd also be a little more on his side. But he's actually really fucking weird when it comes to Reddit threads. If you're watching this, Husky, you're weird. Like, this is not the way you do things. Then yeah, again, I would be like hesitant to involve them, but it is not overall that impactful.
But I mean, if we're talking about like who's getting hired at the first event, I mean, we know who it's going to be. It's going to be Testosis. It's going to be whoever the biggest caster is, probably from the AOE scene. Maybe I don't know how much money. Maybe they get Golden Boy or something. They're going to try to bring in some big names from a bunch of different scenes that they're trying to adopt and bring that in.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
It's not going to
Yeah.
be Husky.
I
Husky
think,
does not have enough of a presence to even be worried about.
no, but that I think is what really it boils down to, honestly, is that people are worried that will be the issue. I actually think that is the crux of the issue. It's not what's happening right now. It's not the positives or negatives right now. It's that people are terrified that this is going to become a market like Heroes of the Storm market was. When that thing was announced, there was a lot of backstabbing. There were people who were desperate to get into another video game because StarCraft 2 was lacking opportunities and was getting less popular, but first before the latter, actually. And the other games are already populated by people who had worked in those games for 10 years, like CS. So there was a ton of backstabbing. Like in the main interviews and like behind the scenes discussions, that seems to be a very go-to example of a toxic esport jump on. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, new esport! Backstab everyone! That happened a lot in Heroes of the Storm. It happens a little bit in other esports, and it basically doesn't happen in StarCraft because we're not big enough. But yeah, I think people are terrified that Stormgate or ZeroSpace or whatever it is going to become the next RTS esport, like dominant RTS esport, is going to be full of those miscalculations. It's going to be full of the backstabbers and the people that everyone hates. And we're going to have to go through the whole discussion and kind of keeping your mouth shut at appropriate times and not rocking the boat and hoping that these people eventually leave. That happened in the beginning of StarCraft 2. And oh, I'm muted. Oh, damn it. Hey, how did that happen? Was I muted the entire time?
I heard you the entire time, so I guess it was just a stream.
So I've been saying, I guess I'll try and summarize it. Here's the Storm, full of backstabbing shits. Wings of Liberty initially also had a lot of them. People are worried that Stormgate or ZeroSpace, whatever dominant RTS, is going to have the same possible problem. And as such, when these companies reach out to those who were maybe part of that problem, there's a worry that they will continue to reach out to them. So, how did I just get randomly muted?
It was literally like apparently like right at the end. Too.
Yeah.
So most of it went through.
Hello? All right, sorry.
I also want to make it clear as well, because I mentioned Grubby and Todd. Those are two people that used to be active in StarCraft 2, and they've moved to other games, but they did it gracefully. They're both personally people that I just kind of thought of off the top. They both still do RTS stuff. Another great example is Demu, but obviously heavily involved in StarCraft 2 and still cast it frequently. And obviously all of us, we're all still doing StarCraft 2. So I want to make it clear that I don't have a problem with anyone who is in the scene, you know, whatever. There was a recent Reddit thread where someone was like, yeah, Steadfast is finally covering this thing. And it was really weird because it was like celebrating me by like putting other people down. So please don't do that, first of all, just as an aside. Like, don't be that guy. I consider all of these people on this show and many others who I know and you know and all them, I consider many of them to be personal friends. So I would really prefer, first of all, that's an aside. But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I think what Steadfast is saying is they don't hire the four of us to do all the Stormgate events. They're doing it wrong, and
we hate them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh well, yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah. No, but like I said, I think the crux of the issue is the concern of where the jobs are going to lie for a lot of people who are going to be talking about this. Obviously, the fans, you guys don't really care as much. But I think that does cause some hesitation and concern because it's less about the people that we agree or disagree on being hired, and it's more about the general idea that we kind of have to go through this whole discussion about like who deserves it and who is actually cool and who is
Wait, we have to be cool?
Somewhat cool anyway.
All right, I'm gonna go head out. I'm
and whether or not the game companies are completely out of touch is also, I think, a real concern when these things happen. Because if they're out of touch as far as the very behind the scenes inner workings drama, well, then that's understandable. If it turns out I've hated Roddy all my life and ESL never knew, I can't blame them for that, right? But if it comes to more of like a question of like, well, this guy isn't a very good commentator. He doesn't know much about the game. He hasn't really put in the hours, and he is kind of a dick at these offline events. And is generally not a good, positive atmosphere. Then what are you doing? Why are you doing this to us? Is I think where we're concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're completely right. And there's been a lot of that type of sentiment. And I remember, for example, for you, just like a few years back, like you felt like it was very difficult to break into the casting scene and to make your name known. And here we are, right? Like where I think a lot of people consider you like the StarCraft 2 caster these days, or at least at a very very high place in that regard. And I think the same is true for like Steadfast's and Biomorph's hard work over time. So I think there's always going to be some favoritism towards people who already have like the largest platforms.
Yeah.
And I think that's just proper strategy. But I also do believe that hard work does pay off and true enthusiasm pays off. Like you all know, I already like mentioned like about our marketing strategy, but beyond the YouTube videos that we produced, I also reached out to like 150 people of my own friends, right, who have a voice out there. I reached out to all of you with the exact same message, right, saying, hey, like be on the lookout for this, basically, and if you enjoy it, support it. And I've gotten a lot of, for example, feedback from these people that I reached out to that shows genuine interest or not, right? Like people who reach back and say, whoa, this looks awesome. When can I, like, Tasteless has asked me when can I play the game, like 5 times in the last 2 days. It's crazy, right? So you know, we're already coordinating with Tasteless to some degree to maybe make something happen like later in the year. And that's not because I think, oh, Tasteless is, you know, the go-to guy for RTS, but rather because, you know, it's apparent that he already enjoys the product or wants to see enough of it that it's a good baseline, plus obviously his reach, right? So I think it's a mix, definitely.
So, Katz, what I'm hearing here is instead of every time I had some question about wanting to know what the date was about the timeline of ZeroSpace, instead of looking it up and doing the responsible thing, I should have just been pestering you to let me know when I was going to get in.
Yeah, I mean,
I was trying to give you some space because it's a busy week, but I mean, apparently.
Tasteless is often the guy who just goes directly to the source.
Exactly, yeah. Tasteless is very direct. Like, again, like, he asked the same question like multiple times. But I think that's awesome in some sense, right? And obviously we have to be slow because we can't onboard like everyone at once, right? Like I said, for the YouTube content creators, for example, we had to do private sessions with them and the developers to explain the game, explain what we're about, like have them ask questions. All of this sort of stuff is kind of like our process at the moment, and you know, we're gonna be widening the scope on those realms. But yeah, I think it's always a mix.
Yeah. Again, kind of TLDR, marketing is hard. No one has a clear image of what's going to work until something works, and they're like, okay, well, we'll try and replicate that a little bit more. But as you could tell, like we got kind of sidetracked by this like individual person being, you know, reached out to. There's just all different types of things that you can do to like market or get your name out there. And there are going to be misses. There are going to be misses, and there's going to be more misses when you actually do stuff. You know, and this that's something that ZeroSpace hadn't yet to do. So they have one thing that they've shown us, and it was a hit, but it's probably inevitable that they'll also have some misses before they've actually launched. And I think we're kind of just boiling this down to, we kind of hope that Stormgate starts to hit some of these marketing hits, you know, actually getting the good stuff instead of the constant complaints that seem to be coming in, which I've really tried to not give my super personal opinion on. I'm just saying the community is definitely one way, and that is negative right now. Because I actually made the video and I was actually almost completely positive, no regard into the perspective of casual fans. Anyway, we have discussed marketing strategy for RTS quite a bit, so we're going to